Hello and welcome surf runners. In this tutorial we'll be talking about Graph database, and we will be emphasizing how important it is in our lives and how it is growing. So let's get to it. Well, before you know what a graph database is, you need to know what is a graph. If you haven't been through data structures or graph structures courses, you wouldn't know that. So let me tell you. This shown in front of us is a graph. It is composed of two main elements: a node, which is here, and this as well, and pretty much every point in this graph is called a node. And the second element is the line connecting between two nodes. This is called an edge, and this is called a node, and they compose the graph. In graph database, it is based on the graph theory. So a node represents an entity, which can be a person, a place, or category, or anything. And an edge represents the relationship between two entities, or two nodes. So in a graph database, an edge represents a relationship between two persons, or two places, and so on. So now we know what is a graph. We are ready to know what is a graph database. A graph database is a database that uses graph structure and graph theory to model and store and map relationships. It uses the nodes and edges and the main concept of the graph, which is connectivity. And as we explained in the graph, the graph database is not so different. It also has nodes, which is right here, and edges, which is right here. So, taking the example in front of us, we have here three entries in the database: ID1, which is name Alice and age 18; ID2, name Bob and age 22; ID3, we have type group and name is chess, so I think this is a chess group. So we have three entries in the database, and we have this edge connecting between them. There is bidirectional, like ID1 is directing towards ID2, and ID2 is directing towards ID1 back. So this is called bidirectional edge. So we see here the relationship between them is shown on the edge. It is written on it. ID 103 label members. So Alice is a member of this group, and Bob is a member too. Look here, label, he knows. So Alice knows Bob, and Bob knows Alice. Since I think this is 2001. So this is a graph database. You have entities which can be persons like this, or can be even groups like this, and you have the edges, which is why they are connected. It shows how they are associated and why they are associated. So now we know what is a graph database. We need to know, why do we use graph database. So graph databases allow simple, fast retrieval of complex structures of data, which means that some data have complex structures and cannot be represented using relational models. So we use graph database to model them. And also, it is well suited for analyzing interconnections, which is why there has been a lot of interest in the graph database in mining data especially, and also in social media. We have here this example that, let's say his name is I don't know, Tom maybe. Okay, so Tom is a friend of this guy, let's say Ben, and Tom is also a friend of Bob. Okay, so what happens here is that Ben likes Sushi Zam, and Bob here likes iSushi, and our friend here Tom gets a notification or a post that his friend likes iSushi and this friend likes Sushi Zam, which is located in New York, and they both serve sushi. So that's how Facebook works, for example. Another example of social media used to the graph database, we can see here the connectivity between a tweet and its sub-elements. A link, it contains a link, it uses a source, it has a hashtag, gets retweeted, and so on, posted by this fella, and he follows this guy that is mentioned in the tweet as well. So we can have this as an example of social media use of graph databases. Also, this one we can have like an example. This is a root node, references this, and so on. It goes on and on and on, and the uses are unlimited. But if we know why do we use graph database, we need to know one more thing to identify the real reason behind the graph database. Why don't we just use relational database? Well, here is the difference. Relational database uses something called foreign key to identify the relation between two tables that they are connected. For example, we have a table of customers and a table of sellers. So the customer buys an item and the seller sells an item. So let's say we have another table for items. An item have an ID. So in the customers table, we will have a foreign key called item ID, which means what items did the customer buy from their ID. And also in the sellers table, it will have an item ID, which will inform the manager what items did this seller sell. So this foreign key, which is the item ID, this represents the interconnectivity between the two tables or the three tables. But in graph database, it is much easier. You don't need foreign key. Also in relation database, we must use a sentence called an SQL sentence statement called join, which retrieves the common part between the tables using that foreign key. So in graph database, as I said, it is much easier. It is just interconnected by nodes and edges, and we don't need any foreign keys or join statements. And for our last note, some of the graph database management systems, we have Neo4j, which is the most common and famous one, HyperGraphDB, and Sparcity. I will leave links for all of them in the description below. And second note is that we have a reference, graph databases, and this reference is for people who want to know more about graph databases and go embedded in it. So I will leave also a link for that in the description. Thank you, that was all for this tutorial. Next tutorial will be about NoSQL databases. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. If you didn't, tell me where did I go wrong, and thank you.